Welcome back, everybody, to another beautiful day of living environment. We are officially on Unit 2. So you are now on Unit 2, Day 1. We're going to be talking about cells. Specifically, what are cells composed of? So by the end of today's video, you will be able to tell me what are cells composed of. Now, when we say composed of, we're talking about what are cells made up of. Okay, so what makes up those cells? Let's find out. So the first thing I want you guys to do, pause this video, answer your do now. What do all living things share in common? I want you to list 2 things that all living things share in common. Okay, so press pause, answer it, and then press play. I'm going to assume that you've answered the question now. So I'm going to go over what do all living things have in common. Now, I only asked you to give me 2. I'm going to give you a few more. I can actually think of about 7. So let's go through all of them. When answering this question, you may have said that all living things are made up of cells. Ooh, that's ugly. Okay, so you may have said all living things are made up of cells. You may have said that all living things reproduce. You may have said that all living things use energy. And you may have said that all living things grow and develop. You may have said that all living things maintain homeostasis. Now, if you did not write this down, I would recommend pausing and writing this word down because you are going to see it a lot this year. And I mean a lot. You're probably going to see it way more times than you wish you would. But I want you to write down that word, and I want you to write down that homeostasis means a stable internal environment. Now, we are going to talk more about that in the upcoming weeks, but I want to go ahead and put that word on your radar because, as I said, you're going to see it a lot. So homeostasis is a stable internal environment. All right, what other living things can we mention? We have cells reproduce, use energy, grow, and develop, maintain homeostasis. Living things also respond to their environment. And finally, you could have said that living things are made up of or have DNA. All right. So you may have come up with some more that I haven't written down, and that's completely fine. If you have any questions about whether or not your example works, shoot me a message on Remind and I'll answer you. But I hope that you chose at least 2 of the examples that I wrote down. So way back in about 1839, so several years ago, 2 old German men were sitting around and they were just enamored with the idea of cells. Okay, and when they were studying cells, they came up with 3 things that make cells cells. And they called this the cell theory. These are 3 requirements. Ignore that. These are 3 characteristics that we need to know about cells. Okay, so the cell theory says 3 things. First thing it says is that all organisms are made up of cells. Now, they can be made up of just 1 cell or more cells. We are made up of many cells, so we're going to be called multicellular. Okay? If you're unicellular, that means you've got 1 cell. But all you need to know about that is that all organisms are made up of 1 or more cells. All right, what else does the cell theory say? Well, the cell theory also says that the cell is the basic building block of life. And when we say it's the building block of life, we mean this in structure and in function. I will elaborate on that more in the upcoming days, but we need to know that the cell is the basic building block of life. And finally, the third part of cell theory says that every cell comes from another cell. And what we mean by that is that cells divide to form new cells. So cells don't just poof out of thin air, they come from a pre-existing cell. Right, so one more time, the 3 tenets of the cell theory. What do we need to know about cells? Well, all organisms are made up of cells, so all living things are made up of cells. The cell is the basic building block of life, and every cell comes from another cell. All right, now, we're now going to transition into organelles. And you might be saying, well, what is an organelle? I thought we were talking about cells. I'm here to tell you, organelles are what make up cells. So while cells are the building blocks of life, organelles are the building blocks of cells, okay? So organelles are different structures that perform different functions in cells. So they perform different functions. And here are the list of their functions. Oh, we've got their descriptions and we've got their functions, okay? I'm going to walk you through what each of these organelles are. Many of them you've probably already heard of. So I have 2 pictures of cells down here. I've got an animal cell on the left and a plant cell on the right. These 2 cells have many similarities, but they also have a few differences. So we're gonna point those out today as well. All right, first up on our organelle list, the description is that it is rigid and it's tough and it's made of cellulose. Where's my highlighter? All right, and the function of this organelle is that it protects and supports the cell. This is found in both animal and, this is found in just plant cells. So what is it? What do we think? This organelle is going to be called our cell. Ooh, I'm struggling with the iPad today. This is our cell wall. Okay, and note that it is only found in plant cells. Right, next up, we've got a thin covering that protects the cells. So it's thin. Its function is it's a protective barrier that controls what materials enter and leave the cell. And this is found in both animal and plant cells. This is what's known as our cell membrane. Ooh. And I'm going to show you guys a picture of what this looks like in just a second. Next up, we've got our jelly-like substance that contains organelles. So it's a jelly-like substance, it contains organelles, and its function is that it pads and supports organelles inside the cell. Once again, this is found in both animal and plant cells. Well, that jelly-like structure is what we call the cytoplasm. Okay, next up, we've got dense circular structures that contain DNA, which is the genetic instructions. And this controls all of the cell's activities. So this is a super important structure. It's found in both animal and plant cells. I bet you know what this is. This is our nucleus. It's our control center of the cell. Next up, we've got small speck-like structures made up of RNA. They're found in the cytoplasm or on or near the endoplasmic reticulum. So we find them in a few places. And their job is that they synthesize or produce protein. Once again, they're found in both animal and plant cells. This is what's known as the ribosomes. So ribosomes produce protein. Okay, next up, these are located in the cytoplasm, but then again, most organelles are. It's a bean-shaped structure with grooves, and its main function is that it supplies energy in the form of ATP for the cell through the it is the mitochondria. Once again, that mitochondria is found in both animal and plant cells. All right, we've just got a few more. This is a large open storage area, and it's smaller in animal cells. So it's a storage area. It stores food, water, wastes, and or enzymes. So it's the storage center of the cell. It stores everything the cells, or not everything the cells need, but it stores a lot of stuff. And it's found in both animal and plant cells. This is known as our vacuole. All right, and finally, last but not least, we've got a green structure that contains chlorophyll. Its job is to capture sunlight and use it to synthesize, or what's another word for synthesize? You should write down produce. Okay, so it synthesizes or produces, go away. There it is. Synthesize or produce food through the process of photosynthesis. Now, super important, this is only found in plant cells. What is it? This is our chloroplast. Right, so we've got two structures that are only found in plant cells, our cell wall and our chloroplast. So now I'm going to show you guys where these things are on these cells down here. I'm going to highlight the organelles that you need to know because there are a lot, and we're only going to focus on the ones that I've talked about up here. Okay, so on our animal cell, you need to know ribosomes, you need to know the cell membrane, you need to know the nucleus, you need to know the mitochondria, you need to know the cytoplasm, and I believe that's it. Yep, okay. Now on the plant cell, let's go through what we need to know here. Once again, you need to know the cytoplasm, you need to know the mitochondria, you need to know the chloroplast, that's unique to plant cells, you need to know ribosomes, nucleus, you also need to know the cell wall, that's unique to plant cells, cell membrane, and vacuole. Now, I don't think vacuole is on our animal cell drawing, but there are vacuoles in animal cells. But vacuoles in plant cells do look a little bit different. Namely, it's huge, right? This vacuole is massive, and we're going to talk about why it's so big in the upcoming days. That's a little question for you. Why is the vacuole in plant cells bigger than in animals? We'll find out. All right, so that is an overview of all of the organelles that you need to know this year. If I were you, I would spend some time going through the descriptions of these organelles as well as what they look like in a diagram, because you will have to identify organelles based on diagrams on both your unit test and your regents. Okay, so make sure you know what those organelles look like and can pick them out in a diagram. So if I say, hey, what's this organelle? You're gonna have to tell me what it is, okay? If you have any questions about this lesson, let me know. If not, go ahead and answer your exit ticket. So open that link and show me what you know. All right, have a wonderful day, guys, and I will see you soon.